Alright, United States Code, Title 50, Chapter 5, Subchapter 3, Section 98. Short title subchapter may be cited with the Strategic Critical Material Stockpiling Act. 98A, the Congressional Plan with the Declaration of Purpose of the Congress run with the natural region of the United States with the strategic critical materials, with the deficient, with the insufficient, with the developed, the supply, with the military, industrial, essential, with the surveillance need of the United States with the national defense. This purpose shall be to provide with the acquisition, retention, for the child, with certain strategic critical material, with the encourage, with the conservation, the development, and serve of the material with the United States, thereby to decree, for the preclude, for the when possible, dangerously cause, with the defense of the United States foreign sources, a single point of failure to supply with the material at the time of the national emergency, for the purpose of the national defense style file is to serve the interest of national defense over the national defense stockpile is not to be used for economic budgetary purposes. National Defense Stockpile with the determination material with the quantity with the subject of the section C with the President shall determine with the time to time with which material with the strategic critical material with the purpose of the subchapter 2 with the qualified with the quantity each of the material acquired with the purpose of the subchapter with the form with the which of the material that should be acquired and stored with the materials when acquired with the other material with described in the section 98C with the title shall constitute with the be collectively known as National Defensive Stockpile here and subject referred to as stockpile. Guidelines exercised with the presidential authority. President shall make determinations required with the made under the subsection A with the basis of the principles A within section 98AC of the title of the quantity chain with the notification of the Congress quality of the immaterial stockpile under the subchapter in effect September 30, 1987 that may be chained with the provided subsection of the otherwise provided law and enacted after December 4, 1987. The President shall notify the Congress in writing of the increase of the proposed made with the quantity of the made material stockpile that involves acquisition of additional material with the stockpile with the President make the increase of the after the end of the 30-day period beginning with the date of the notification. President shall include within full explanation of justification proposed increase with notification. Materials constituting national defense stockpile. The stockpile consists of the following material. The materials are subject with the contained with the national stockpile with July 29, 1979. Materials according to subchapter after July 29, 1979. Materials supplemental with the stockpile will establish in section 1704B with the title with effect 21st, 1959 through December 31st, 1966 on July 29, 1979. Materials acquired with the United States with under provision section 4533 of the title for transfer the stockpile with the President pursuant with the subsection F of the subsection. Materials transferred to the United States under section 2423 with the title 22 with the determine the strategic critical material for the purpose of the chapter that allocated to the President under subsection B with the subsection with the stockpile and the stockpile. Material acquired with the Commodity Credit Corporation and transfer of the stockpile under section 71.4B with the H with the title 15 material with the Commodity Credit Corporation paragraph 2 with the section 17.43A with the title 7 with the transfer of the stockpile under the third sentence of the section. Materials transferred to the stockpile with the President under paragraph 4 with the section 17.43A with the title 7 with the materials transferred to the stockpile under subsection B and C with the materials transferred to the stockpile under subsection C. B to transfer the reimbursement of the notwithstanding the provisional law with the material. The one is under the control of the Department of Agency of the United States, with the two determined above the need of the head of the such with the Department agency except to be in need of the responsibility. 3. The suitable for the transfer the disposal of the stockpile shall be the transfer the stockpile with the transfer shall be made reimbursed for the Department agency. The all costs required to effect with the transfer should be paid reimbursement funds appropriated to carry out the subchapter transfer and disposal. C. The Secretary of Defense shall determine whether material suitable for the transfer of the stockpile or in subsection B are suitable for the disposal through the stockpile when they are uncontaminated. Authority to stockpile operation. Funds appropriate to the acquisition of the stockpile transactions. Significant changes here with acceptable acquisition provided and made under the authority of the paragraph 3 of this section. 1. So original probably should be subsection or under the authority of paragraph 3 and 4, section 98EA of the title with no funds to the obligated of the property of the acquisition material with the subchapter 11 of the funds with the stuff of the acquisition have been authorized by the law with the funds appropriate for the acquisition of the material subchapter for the transportation and the incidental expense of the related to such acquisition should remain available until the expended unless for the otherwise provided in appropriate acts. The other official years of the President proposed with the Congress required the significant chain with the stockpile with the transaction proposed with the annual material operation plan with the official year of the board submitted with the report when there's section 98H2B2 with the title with the containing such plan with the significant transaction not including such plan no amount with the obligated expend with the sum of the transaction such year with the President shall be submitted with the full statement proposed transaction for the appropriate committee for the Congress for the period of 45 days with the have passed for the day with the receipt with the statement such for the committees. 3. Using funds appropriated with the acquisition materials under the subchapter of the National Defense Stockpile manager may acquire the material determined with the strategic critical under subsection 98B A of the the title without regard to the requirement of the first sentence, paragraph 1, if the stockpile manager determines if there is a shortfall of such materials in the stockpile. B, with the disposal. C, with the disposal is made with the authority, paragraph 3, 4, and 5. See reference text note with the section 98EA, with the title with the section 98FA of the title, no disposal will be made with the stockpile unless the type of the disposal will include the quantity of the material of the disposal that have been strictly authorized by law. C, authorization, appropriation, authorized appropriated such sum with being necessary may even be provided with the transportation, processing, refining, storage, security, maintenance, the rotation, and disposal of the material contained in the acquired stockpile with the funds appropriated with the purpose of the remain available until expended unless otherwise provided in appropriate acts. Alright, stockpile management. The President power of the President shall acquire with the material determined in subsection 98B, with the title with the strategic critical material that provide with the proper storage, security with the maintenance of the material with the stockpile. 3, provide with the upgrading and refining of the process for the aim of the material stockpile, and notwithstanding the immediate stock quantity with the established for such of the material, was to convert with the such of the material for the warms more suitable with the storage subsequent to disposition immediately with the national emergency. Provide with the rotation with the material of the stockpile with the necessary to prevent deterioration, technology, obsolescence, and the trust of the material replacement, so with the material with the equivalent quantity with the substantial the same matter of the better material will provide with the appropriate recovery the owning of the strategic critical material in section 98BA with the title may be available except the materials may be available to recover the purpose of the federal agency. 6, subject notification request subsection D2 with the provided with the timely disposal of the material with the stockpile with the in that A, excessive the stockpile requirements, and B, that may cover the loss of the government allowed with the deteriorate with the 7 the subject of the provision 98B with the title so with the material with the stockpile with the disposal with specifically authorized by law. With B, the federal procurement practices, except provided in subsection C and D, the acquisition of strategic critical material with the subchapter may be made in accordance with the established federal procurement practices, except provided in subsection C and D with the section 98FA, the size of disposal strategic critical material with the stockpile shall be made in accordance with the next step of the maximum extent feasible with competitive procedure for the shall be used the acquisition disposal of the stuff of the materials efforts should be made with the acquisition disposal of such material with the disposal of the producer the processors of such material to avoid use undo the disruption of the use of the market the producers and processors consumer the stuff of the material that protect the United States against avoidable loss. See barter use of the stockpile and material of the payments of the expense of acquiring, refining, processing, rotating materials. President should encourage the use of the barter acquisition subsection A1 strategic critical material with the disposal of the subsection A and 5 and or A6 with the material with the stockpile acquisition disposal of the barter is authorized by law and is practiced for the best interest of the United States. With 2, the material stockpile is disposition authorized in paragraph 3 of the financing, upgrading, refining process of the material with the stockpile otherwise authorized law should be made available to transfer the fair market value of the pay with expense with including transportation over the incidental expense of the acquisition material with the upgrading, refining of the process of the rotating material with the subchapter 3 notice notwithstanding with the 98BC with the title of the any other provision law whenever the President provides on subsection A3 with the upgrading for refining process of the material with the stockpile with the convert the material in form more suitable storage subsequent to disposition immediate use of the national emergency of the President made part of the portion of the same material with the material stockpile authorized with the disposal of the financing, upgrading, and refining process. To the extent the otherwise authorized law properly owned the United States with the may be barred of the material and the stockpile waiver the notification pro with the disposal of the material of the President made with the waiver the applicable with the name of the provision first sentence of the subsection B with the new acquisition with any acquisition of the material with the disposal of the material from the stockpile whenever the President waives such provision with respect to the acquisition disposal whenever the President determines of the application paragraph 1 or 2 of the subsection particular acquisition is not feasible. The President shall notify the Committee of the Armed Service of the same the Committee of the Armed Service of the House of Representatives with the writing with the proposed acquisition disposal for at least 45 days of the obligation the United States that incurred in connection with such acquisition disposal should include the notification reason for not complying with any provisions of subsection 2 material of the stockpile may be disposed of under subsection A5 of only if such congressional committees are notified of the writing of the approve the disposal of at least 45 days of the obligation the United States incurred with the connection with the disposal. He can leasehold the interest of the property if the resident may acquire the leasehold interest property for a period of excess of 20 years with the storage, security, and maintenance of the material within the stockpile of the loans of the stock material of the President made on the loans stockpile with the material of the Department of Energy, Middle Department, no matter with the President. Reasonable assurance of the stockpile material similar superior quantity quality with the materials loan with the return with the stockpile over the paid for with the notified with the congressional deleted defense of the committees as defined in section 101A of Title 10 in writing no less than 30 days of the making of the stuff of the loan including writing notification on paragraph 2 sufficient assurance is described in paragraph 1. Stockpile management transferred 98E1 transferred Alright, 98F, Special President is disposal of the material stockpiles may be relieved to you for the sale of the other disposition in order for the President any of the time of the President for the term of the release for the sale of the materials required for the purpose of the national defense for the time of the border to go with the declarant, Congress for the national emergency in order for the officer of the employee with the United States with the design with the President with the authority to dispose of the order with the subsection of the officer employee to determine the relief for the sale of the materials required for the purpose of the national defense in the order of the end of the Secretary of the Defense by acquisition sustained with the President with the designated under Secretary to have the authority for the release of the order subsection in the case of the special over the Undersecretary to determine the release for the sale of the materials required for the use of the manufacture production for the purpose of national defense. Any order issued in subsection A should properly be reported for the President with any of the officer employee in such an order in writing with the Committee of the Armed Services of the Senate with the Committee of the Armed Services of the House of Representatives. Alright, 98G. Material development and research for the development, mining with the preparation, the treatment, the utilization, or with the other minerals, so for the make scientific technology, economic investigation concerning the development, mining, preparation, the treatment, the utilization of the war with the other minerals, substance of the air from the United States or the territory possessions, be the essential for the national defense, for the industrial, essential for the of the United States, or sea found with the known domestic, so for the inadequate quantity of the grades of the investigation be carried out with the aid of the determined to develop new domestic sources of supply of the type of the ores and mineral substance invested in the B with the devise new method of treating utilization lower grade preserve the type of the ores and mineral substance with the C with the development and substitute such ores and mineral products. 3. Investigate under paragraph 1 be carried out in public land with the consent of the owner of the privately owned land purpose with the exploring with the determining the extent quality of the product such minerals of the most suitable methods of the mining and the beneficiating such minerals of the cover of which the minerals or metals are produced, the development of the supply of the agricultural materials, even the agricultural commodity of the manufactured materials. President shall make scientific technology, economic investigation, feasibility development, domestic sources supply of the agricultural material, even the agricultural commodity of the manufactured material that determined and pursuant to Section 98BA of the title of the strategic critical material subsidies thereof. See the development supports the supply other material development, use the alternative method of refining, processing the main materials, and stockpile. The President shall have scientific technology, economic investigation concerning the feasibility of developing domestic supply material with the other materials referred to in subsection A of the B of the determined pursuant to section 98BA of the title of the strategic critical material that the develop use of the alternative method of the refining process of the material stockpiles and convert such material to the more suitable for the use of the during an emergency or for storage. D. Grant contract with the encouraging conservation strategic critical material with the juncture of the conservation of the domestic material, the aim of the material with the term pursuant with the 98BA with the strategic critical of the material with the grant for the war contract except for the reward of development substitute with such material to more efficient method of production of the use of such material. 98H, National Defense of the Tax Pile with Transaction Fund. Establishment of the Treasury United States with the Separate Fund known as the National Defense Stockpile with Transaction Fund. Here is the section referred to as a fund. Fund operation. All monies received with the sales of the material of the stockpile under paragraph 5 and 6 with the section 98EA with the title C of the reference text below should be covered in this fund. Subsection 98A of the title of the monies covered in the first one with the paragraph 1 of the hereby available to such for the subject limitations may be the provided appropriation act the following purpose: acquisition, and disposal of the strategic critical material within section 98E with the title of the transportation, storage, incidental with expensive related such as acquisition and maintenance for the disposal, new development, current specification stockpile of material with the upgrade existing stockpile of material with the meet the current specification, including the transportation economic lead related such upgrading. D. The encourage appropriate conservation of strategic critical materials. E. The testing quality state of the stock materials. S. To the future material of the mobilization requirements of the stockpile. G. The authorized activities authorized in section 98H6 of the title contracting under competitive material produced, material developed, the research to the one improve the quality available to the material stockpile at the time in the stock, develop new material of the stock materials, and improvement of the rehabilitation facility structure for the infrastructure the need to maintain with the integrity of the stock materials. J. Disposal of hazard materials are stored in the stockpile with the authorized disposal of the law, the performance, environmental remediation, restoration, waste management, compliance activity, the location stockpile with the required under federal law with the undertaking of the government and administrator of the decision negotiated agreement, pay the employee with the National Defense Stock Program, other expense with the National Defense Stock Program, monies and funds that shall remain available and extended. Expended. C. Monies received from sale of the materials being rotated and disposed. All monies received with the sales material being rotated in provision 98EA4 with the title disposed under section 98FA of the title shall be covered in the fund and shall be available to only acquisition replacement material of that replacement materials. Effective bartering and official year with the National Defense Stockpile barter materials of the stockpile purpose acquiring, upgrading, refining process for the other materials here that are directly related to the purpose. Contract value of the materials such barter shall be applied with the value of the materials authorized to store with the stockpile during the official year with the traded acquisition purpose satisfying the requirement imposed with the National Stockpile manager during their obligations during the official year with the subsection B2 and not increase the degrees of the balance in the fund. Alright, reports. Reports of the board. National Stockpile with the manager shall submit to the board the following no later than 40 calendar days after the last day of each of the three official quarters of each of the official year of the unaudited financial statement of the manager for the discussion and analysis of the immediate preceding first quarter of no later than 68 calendar year of the conclusion of fourth quarter of each of the official year of the audited financial statement of the manager discussion and analysis of the immediate preceding official year of the annual material of the operating plan for the coming year. Reporting Congress the national report of the National Defense Stockpile Management that received the original probably should be manager of the no later than 90 days of the conclusion fourth quarter of the official year of the National Defense Stockpile Manager shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees as defined in Section 101A of the Title 10 report that shall include the information with respect to the foreign domestic purchase of the material of the stockpile during the preceding fiscal year, b. the information with respect to acquisitions of the materials and subject buried during the said fiscal year, the information with respect to activity of the National Defense Stock Manager incurred with the conservation substitution, the development of the strategic critical material, the information with respect to the research and development activities conducted in Section 98G of the TEL, the audited annual financial statement of the strategic critical material funds, of the pertinent information administered of the subchapter enable the Congress to evaluate the effectiveness of the program, details of the plan expense for the strategic critical material funds over the future year of the defense program anticipated to receive the promoted disposal of stock materials and reports of paragraph 8.2. Report of the board shall prepare a written report accompanying the report required in paragraph 1 shall include the activities of the board to carry out the duties listed in Section 98H1C of the title. Most recent recent annual materials operation plan submitted in subsection A2 and B. Alright, 98H3, per definition of the purposes of the chapter, for the strategic critical material, the means of the materials, and A, would deem to supply with the military, industrial, essential civilian needs of the United States during national emergency, if not found with the produce of the United States with sufficient quantity to meet such needs, through national emergency, means of the general declaration of emergency of the respect of the national defense made with the President by Congress, the national technology industrial base, the means of the given in terms of the term in 2500 of Title 10. M98H4 importation of the strategic critical material of the President may not prohibit or regulate the importation of the United States of any material determined the strategic critical pursuant to the provision of the subject of the material product for the any foreign country area with not listed in the General Note 3B. Harmonized tariff schedule of the United States subchapter entitled 19 U.S. Standard Code 1202, so long as the importation of the United States of the material of the kind of the product of the country area listed in such a General Note is not prohibited by provisions of the law. Alright, 98H5 of the biennial report of the stockpile requirement no later in general no later than January 15th of each of every year the Secretary of Defense shall submit to the Congress report of stockpile requirements. Each of the reports shall include the Secretary recommendation of the stockpile requirements and no matter of the requirement in subsection B of the National Emergency Plan and assumption for the except for the runner of the subsection set forth in the National Emergency Plan and assumption for the end of the Secretary making the Secretary recommendation. Subsection A of the respect of the stockpile requirement the Secretary shall be with the National Emergency Plan and assumption for the military conflict scenario consistent with the scenario of the Secretary budgeting defensive planning purposes assumption to be set forth, including assumptions relating to each of the following: length of the intensity of the assumed military conflict, 2, the military force structure that be mobilized, 3, losses anticipated, the enemy action, 4, the military industrial essential civil requirements to support national emergency, 5, the availability supply of the strategic material of the foreign supply sources during the mobilization period of the military conflict, subsequent period of the replenishment, taking consideration possible shipping loss for the domestic production strategic critical material during the remobilization period of the military conflict, subsequent period of replenishment, taking consideration possible shipping losses. 7, civilian austerity measure of the required during the mobilization period and ending of the military conflict. C, the period in which the replenished material stockpile requirements should be based on the strategic critical material of the necessary for the United States. The replenished replaced for 3 years for the end of the military conflict scenario required in subsection B with all munitions, combat support items, weapon system system that would be required after the military conflict, end of the alternative mobilization period. Secondary shall also include each report on a subsection examination effective the alternative mobilization period under the military conflict scenario required in subsection B, as well as the range of other military conflict scenarios addressing potentially more serious threats for the national security would have the secondary recommendation on subsection A1 with respect of the stockpile requirements. Alright, E. Plans of the President. President shall submit each for the report under the section stated of the plan. President of the meeting with the recommendation. Secretary said for the fourth, and then the report briefings of the shortfall of the stockpile with no later than March 1st each year with the National Defense Stockpile Manager provided the Congressional Defense Committee with the briefing of the strategic critical materials or determining the shortfall of the most recent report of the stockpile requirements submitted in subsection A with the acquisition of the disposal included with the annual material of the operation plan with the operation stockpile during the next fiscal year with the committee with the under section 98 HB2 with its title. Each briefing requiring paragraph 1 shall include the description of each material described in the paragraph, including objectives for the T with the funding is provided in or in part for the acquisition of material remedy of the shortfall with the estimated amount required to provide in such funding, if any, assessment of supply chain, each of the type of the material, including an assessment of any relevant risk in any such supply chain. Alright, 98H5 biannual report of stockpile requirements. That was 98H6, the development of domestic sources. A. Purchase of the material of the domestic origin, profit of the material of the domestic facility. Subsection C. For the extent of the materials that determines such action required by the National Defense President shall encourage for the development and appropriate conservation of the domestic source of the material that determined pursuant to 98BA of the title of the strategic critical materials. 1. Purchase of the making of the commitment to purchase strategic critical material with the domestic origin source of the material that needed to stockpile with the B with the contract of the domestic facility, the making the commitment to the contract with the domestic facility, the process of the refining strategic the critical of the material with the stockpile with the process of the providing necessary to convert the stuff of the materials to form suitable for the storage subsequent disposition. 3. By qualifying existing domestic facility with the domestically produced strategic critical material to meet the requirements of the defense essential civilian industry for the time of the national emergency for the existing domestic source of supply in either insufficient vulnerable single points of failure, being contract domestic facilities to recycle strategic critical material thereby increasing domestic supplies when such materials would otherwise be insufficient to support the defense essential critical civilian industry within the time of national emergency. The domestic source of the unavailable to meet the requirement defined in paragraph 1 through 4 with the making effort the proprietary of the purchase of the strategic critical material of the national technology industry based. Terms and conditions with the contracts or commitments. Contract commitment made under subsection A may not exceed 5 years of the date of the contract commitment. The for the purchase for the commitment, the purchase may be decided for the client such terms, condition, and advance payment that the president considers to be the necessary of the proposed transaction include with the annual material of the operation plan with availability of the funds, description of the transaction, subsection A shall include the appropriate annual material of the operating plan with submitted with the Congress under section 28 H2B with the title of the chain with the aim of the type of the transaction, additional transaction not including such plan should be made with the manner of the provided subsection 98A2 of the title of the authority of the President enter the obligation over the section in effect of the fiscal year for the only extent of the funds of the National Defense Stockpile transaction under adequate to meet such obligation. Payments required and result obligations incurred under the section shall be made with the forms of the amount and fund. D. Transportation incidental expense for the authority of the President under subsection A include the authority to pay for the expense of the transporting material of the or 2 other incidental expenses related to carrying out such subsection. E. Report the President acting with the National Defense Stockpile Manager through the act of the National Stockpile Manager shall include the reports required in subsection 98 H2B1 of the title information respective activities conducted under this section. Alright, 98H7 of the Defense Stockpile for the manager for the appointment. The President shall designate the single federal officer for the head of the responsible for the performance of the function for the President under the subchapter of the other under the section 98FA1 through 98A and 98FA1, 98H4 for the office designated shall be one for the appointment of the made with the President made with the aim of the vibe with the consent with the Senate with the title of the designated officer involved with the holding with the office designated with the President under subsection A shall be done for the purpose of function under subchapter F with the National Defense Stockpile Manager delegation for the function of the President delegated for the function of the President on the subchapter other under subsection 98FA1, 98H4 of the title of the only National Defense Stockpile of the Manager. Such a delegation made by the President shall remain with the end of the effect with specifically revoked by law. Executive order of the President may not delegate function of the President under section 98FA1 through 98H of the title. Alright, 98A, repeal Public Law 85A, 61, 36A, September 2, 2nd, 1958, 72, Statute 1570, 99, transferred, Alright, 99 transferred, 100 nitrate plane with investigation designated ship of the construct for the operation dam life with improvement of the navigation and such for the President of the United States to make the cover the made with the assessment investigation judgment the necessary for determine the best and the cheapest and most available to mean with the production of the nitrate of the product with the munitions of war useful for the manufacturer, fertilizer, other use for the product with the water power, any of the power and judgment best for the cheapest for the use of the also when the authorized to testing with the exclusive use of the United States for the judgment such for the need of the best and cheapest such sites and sites the unnavigable, non-navigable river rivers of the upon the public land. This opinion of the necessary for the national defense further authorized construct, maintain, operate at any sites of silver that the designated of the dam locks, improve the navigation power out with the other plans, the equipment, the meaning of the water power with the judgment, the best and cheapest necessary, the meaning of the generation, electrical other power with the production, nature of the other products, the need for the munition of the war, useful manufacture, fertilizer for the other use of products. Leases, purchase for the acquisition of lands right away, purchase for the acquisition material of the mineral products of the president is authorized to leave them per the acquire with the condemnation, give the grant, the divide for the type of the lands rights away will be necessary for construction operations. Such plan with the take for the lands of the United States with the buy with the acquire with the condemnation material of the minerals of the process of the plant patented otherwise is necessary for the construction operations such plant and manufacture of such products. Use of the products and plan the disposal of the surplus of the products such plan shall be used for the president military some of the purposes to the extent that may be deemed necessary for the need of the surplus which shall be determined and will not require be shall be disposed within him or under such regulation as prescribed. Employment of the officer of the agents and agent for the president authorized to employ such officer agents or agencies that made a discretion of the necessary to enable him to carry out the purpose herein. So provide the authorized require such officer of the agency or agency to perform any and all duties imposed upon him on the provisions hereof. Government construction operation plan and plans provided under the subsection be constructed and operated solely with the government, not in conjunction with any other industry and enterprise carried out on private capital by private capital. 100A1 omitted. And that was section titled 50 chapter United States Code title 50 chapter 5 subchapter 398 short title once again Strategic Critical Material Stockpiling Act.